So
I just realized I didn't start the recording, so I guess we'll definitely have to talk about your clubs again when I
Yeah.
start it.
yeah. So
Yeah, so basically how it'll work, you can honestly talk about whatever you want. You can give as much information or as little information as you want to. Um, I'll field questions from Facebook as they come up, and then I'll just kind of interject um, when there's like an opportunity to. So, and yeah, and then I'll ask questions as well, like, hey, what do you do for this or that? Guess I should put my phone on silent. So, yeah, and then we'll just kind of go through it. It's about an hour, but are you going to be done in like 4 minutes? Because literally I have to start in like 5 minutes. Okay, it's going to be an hour. It's good. You can do it. Well, just you're not going to be able to have that timer going. I'm doing a podcast. So it's a whole hour, yeah. So if you want to turn off the thing, because I won't be talking the whole time, but well, or just do it from your phone. So it's not over the thing. Sweet.
So I can still do it.
You'll be fine. It's fine. You can do it. I probably should do this at my house, but I'm always here, so it's like it's just easier to do it like at the gym. I don't know.
And it looks good. I mean, it looks good. You know, it looks like you're in the place you should be.
yeah, it looks great. I love your curls, by the way.
Oh, thanks. They're getting there. Some days they're like really crazy. You know, I did not realize, like, I don't know if my hair's always been this curly and I just did it so I could know how to do it, but it has never been this curly before. And then I don't know, I just started working on it. So I guess it's probably always been this curly.
Yeah, it's fun.
Or it's gotten curlier as I've gotten older. I don't know.
Mine has changed. Like it went from kind of wavy to curly to really curly. And then it can be straight. It gets really, really curly, but kind of in between. If it's shorter, it gets like yours, like really curly. That's fun. Bill's too. His gets curly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess I can go ahead and I will share this to Facebook. And then I'll need to get it shared over to the group page because I used to be able to project this directly into the group, and Facebook like changed its options. So now you can only share onto your timeline or share onto your page.
Yeah, it seems to change almost every month.
Yeah, so it used to make it easy. I just share it directly into there and we'd be good to go. And now I have to do all these other things.
And when we stand up, we can adjust the camera.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can just turn it around or whatever when we move to doing other stuff.
Are you gonna swing with us?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So I'll look at the page and see.
There we
Oh, it's showing up.
So now it should be on.
Yeah, looks like it's good to go.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody to another learning session on the Kettlebell Almanac page. I have Bill and Steph Sorenson to talk about club work and like how you can incorporate it into your trainings, whether it's kettlebell or really anything else. I think, you know, you can kind of utilize it as a standalone, but I always utilize it for like warming up or stuff to do in between. So what got you guys started using clubs? I mean, it's not like a traditional, obviously a traditional workout. So what got you introduced to it?
Well, we first started the kettlebell kind of back in the day, like 2008. And that's kind of the gateway drug to all of these other things. So we picked up the mace in about 2018
Yeah,
with Rick Brown. So our journey with the mace started with Rick Brown. And then later that year, one of our
Mine as well, by the way.
sure.
yeah, yeah. And then later on that year, we picked up the Indian clubs. We went to a workshop with Phil Scarito because he was in the area, King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. And so we did a workshop with him and then just fell in love with the clubs as well. So that's kind of where it started.
Yeah.
So wait, are you guys out of Pennsylvania?
We are in Minnesota now. We moved to
Oh,
Minnesota.
okay.
Yep. We
My
moved to
parents are from
Minnesota.
Pennsylvania, so
Who's from Pennsylvania?
my parents.
Oh,
I think they lived in Cannonsburg.
Mechanicsburg?
I think it's Cannonsburg.
Okay. Okay.
So
Nice.
So you started moving into club work, and if I have to mention, like, I don't know if anybody knows, but Bill makes custom clubs. So I have a set of their clubs here, which are really beautiful. Why don't you kind of talk about what got started? Like, you go from swinging clubs, and you're like, we're just gonna make them ourselves.
Yeah, we, so usually clubs come in 16-inch length, 1-pound clubs. Many people have plastic clubs, the $10 to $20 clubs that you buy on Amazon as a starting point. And as we progressed, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
As we progressed,
They're great, by the way.
yeah, and they're a great start. As we progressed, we ended up buying kind of everybody's clubs. And part of it was looking for what we thought was the perfect club. And some were really close. So ultimately, we kind of are makers. We made maybe 300 gatas over the last number of years and went through that, and then really looked at the Indian club and said, you know, what would be the perfect club? And so I wanted a longer club. So this one's 18 and a half inches. And I wanted a little bit heavier than 1 pound. So we made so we made a 1.5 pound, 18 and a half inch club. And then one thing I noticed as I progressed was as things got complicated transitions, snakes, those kinds of things, the round pommel, and sometimes the pommels are really small, really cause the club to fly out of your hand. And so we went through a bunch of different pommels and came up with a little bit of a square pommel, still round on the inside, but this really locks that club into your hand as you do, you know, complicated movements. And so it's kind of funny. We sent out the design to a bunch of turners, and we got a bunch of different clubs back.
What the heck is the turner? What's
Well, a wood turner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, trimmers. I thought you said turners.
No, they're turners. You know, they
Okay.
turn the clubs. And the clubs came back all different sizes and styles, even though the design was the same. And then ultimately we picked a company out of Massachusetts to produce them, and they turned out phenomenal. We also ended up doing a lighter club out of India, out of mahogany, and so have those as well. And that was kind of an interesting process. So we got to meet a bunch of wonderful people. And in the end, we got a really, really good really, really good club design, kind of a modern, what I would say would be a modern club design. A little heavier, a little longer, swings a little better, and stays in your hand. You know, there's many people who start to work with snakes or different transitions, and, you know, the club just leaves you.
I mean, 1 pound's not really that much, but 1 pound going through a window is a lot.
Yeah.
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 For your head, right?
Or, yeah, I mean, or hitting somebody else is a lot.
Exactly, exactly.
It's good to make room.
So if someone was like kind of out there searching for a club, so you talked about some of the plastic, which the plastic clubs that I have, I think I got off like Amazon or something, and
Yeah.
they are really for juggling. And I think I got them up to like 3 pounds. And so, and I don't even remember they weren't very expensive. I feel like they were between like $10 and $25. So if somebody's out there like looking for clubs, like obviously we want them to buy yours, but
Yeah.
if they're out there looking for clubs, like what are some specifications they should be looking for online? Because I really didn't know when I was searching. I just like picked something and hoped it was going to be okay.
You bet. Usually as a starter club, that 1 to 2 pound club is really what you look for. We love Wave Cheese Club. So Jack from Wave Chi put together a unique club design, more of a Victorian club. It's about 1.5 pounds. It's got a nice pommel, and these are reasonably priced as well. And so these are really good starter clubs. And then there are a number of different wooden club manufacturers besides us that do a number of different clubs. But really love the Wave Chi ones. Again, they kind of stick in your hand. You can throw them around. They're dent proof. And he's got a couple different materials.
So are those ones wooden also, or they are plastic, or they vary?
No, they're plastic and they're hemp. He found a guy who has incorporated hemp into plastic, which is a little bizarre, but kind of a renewable resource a little bit.
I actually have I think.
The brown ones
Yeah, the brown ones I have.
are hemp. But Jack makes a great club, really good guy. He swings a little bit differently than many of us, but the clubs are phenomenal and really priced right. We end up with about 50 different designs and pairs of clubs in the house.
So these are called Wave Chi. Did
Yeah.
you give the name already? Okay. Wave Chi Hawaii. Those are great. They swing really nicely.
Yeah.
Great pommel too.
So let's kind of talk about getting into, so we already talked about probably starting out, just 1 to 2 pounds to start swings. Kind of where should somebody start if they're trying to get into club swinging? What swings are best to start with?
So
Do you want to just?
yeah, how about if we'll stand up and then we'll go through some fundamental movements. But before we do stand up, let's talk about the grip. So how to hold the club and the 2 different grips involved.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting is when people get clubs, usually they, grab the handle of the club and hold it this way.
Kind of like a baseball bat.
Right. The correct way to hold a club is to use your ring finger, and that sits at the bottom of the pommel. And then your fingers go around it, and your pinky rides on that pommel. And so this locks it into your hand, and then this really allows good control as you move the club through different hand grips. And there's kind of 2 basic hand grips. There's a full grip and then a saber grip. And these are really the first 2 that you learn and use as you're swinging the club. When the club's at extension, it's in this saber grip. And then when the club comes in front of you, as you do heart shapes, it really goes into this full grip. So that's one thing that's important, is to get those 2. And then we do also talk about a wrist circle as the first kind of transition. And that, is just a movement that moves the club in a circle. Your hand opens to what they call a ring grip. And this sits in your thumb and then allows you to let go, let the club move, and then catch it. So full grip.
Go ahead and do the ring grip again. One key piece with the wrist circles is when you're in this ring grip, you want to make sure that your hand doesn't slide down to the palm
Right.
like this, because then when you come back around, you'll have to readjust. See, now my hands are out of position, excuse me, there. But if I'm up here and I do my ring grip, sorry, babe.
No, that's okay.
I do my ring grip here, see how there's space, then you still land in the same position.
Yeah. So those are the first two things. And then you want to wing a little bit?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and get set up. Back. And then and a little down, up, little up, right there. That's good. That should be good.
You have like the best assistant. I have to adjust my own camera. I will say the one thing that, I mean, I do some swinging, not with the clubs, not like in general life, but
There we go.
one thing I really have never learned is I really have never practiced trying to do wrist circles. So I can't do any fancy things, just like normal things. If
That's okay.
swinging clubs is the normal thing.
Everybody starts in.
So the wrist circle is, so you're in this hammer grip. Hammer grip or full grip, you can use that term interchangeably. So pinky over the pommel, ring finger riding the pommel. You go into saber. So in the saber grip, your club's an extension of your elbow straight through the end of the club. So we're not going to be cocked down or anything. So resting on the index finger, that's the saber grip. And then from there, just let it fall. Serve just like you're serving, and you're pinching with your ring finger and thumb, and then with your thumb, then bring it around. So hammer, saber, ring, and around. Hammer, saber, ring, and around. And then just cast it away and around. So you're pushing it away from yourself and around.
Yep. And you just catch it back in this hammer grip or full grip.
Yeah, nice sturdy grip. So real sturdy, real sturdy. Real
I guess I have done this, but I never release. I don't release my hand. I usually just hold on to it,
Yeah.
which is probably makes it harder.
Right.
It's
On your wrist.
Yes, you'll find a little wrist tweakiness there. So that's where this, it's really strengthening for these two fingers there. So, and then really just, so it's just a serving of the wrist. So around and back, around and back.
And one way to practice this is you can.
That's it.
Yeah, there you go. That's perfect. Is you can do this against a wall and literally just have the club ride the wall to create a nice full circle. And use the plastic clubs for that. But that'll let you. Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of a fun thing to do. Say if you're sitting at your desk, if you do a lot of desk work and typing, it's a fun thing to do. Just okay. I'm just
gonna be at work and they're gonna be like, "What is that?" I'm like, "If anybody pisses me off today, like
Yeah.
it's right." I'm just getting warmed up.
Arm just got longer.
And then you can also
They're gonna walk into my office and be like, "What is going on in here?" I'm like, "I'm just, working with my carpal tunnel."
There you go. So you can also do in the reverse direction as well. So say you're going inward hearts. So You can do revert, yep. Yeah.
So you can work it both ways. There you go.
Yeah, but just start, I would start with
It's so much
just-
faster.
It is, and
I feel like it's going so slow.
it'll really solve that wrist, instead of trying to do it with your wrist, it really makes it a smooth movement.
Yeah, and just make sure that when you get to that ring grip portion, that your palm is serving. So really get that palm up.
And it does take a little while to
Yeah.
get it smooth.
Yep.
I feel like I'm really trying to grip it when I go the opposite direction.
Yeah,
Yeah,
forward is much easier than, you'll find one direction.
So it's not me, it's the,
yeah, that's a more, it's
I
awkward.
think I don't let it, my wrist relax enough to let it just
Right.
swing. Like, I'm trying to like really control it around. Woo.
Yep.
I almost hit myself in the head.
If you do it with more of an extended arm too, that helps. It keeps you from using your elbow. But a good place to start is just with that forward motion. All right, let's move on to just some basic movements that most folks can do right out of the gate. And these are a lot of movements. I use these as warm-ups, as kind of a active recovery between sets. I do kettlebell juggling, so I'll often do a set very taxing, and then I'll take these to get out of my head and also just to recover cardio, just bring the heart rate down. But these are just some nice, easy movements. So the first movement we're going to do, that's going to kind of reinforce the, in sport, you guys do a lot of the hip hinge. Any kettlebell swing, and you do a lot of the hinge. I'll do from the side, and Bill will do from the front.
We'll try not to hit each other.
Let me scoot back even more. I'll scoot back even a little more. How's that?
Perfect.
If the police call, I will vouch for you that it was,
That's right.
we were practicing.
When you're first learning kettlebell and you go to the doctor and you have bruise all over your arms, like,
Are you safe at home is their first
is
question.
everything okay? All right. Oh,
So a funny story, when my husband used to do MMA, he got his eye cut during a fight. And so sometimes the doctors will stitch it up there, but we ended up having to go to the ER afterwards so he could get it stitched up. And so we waited forever because obviously we're not a priority because he's not dying. And so we go back to talk to the nurse during the intake, and she was like, she basically was like, how'd this happen? I was like, I did it. As a joke, like, like I hit him. And she kind of looked at me. I was like, what? You don't think I have the ability? Apparently domestic violence is not a joke at the hospital because she was not entertained at all.
No.
And she obviously doesn't know you. Okay, so the first movement is just a hinge, excuse me, a hinge and swing. So almost like the kettlebell swing, only with clubs. So we're just going to start.
And your mic's on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I yelling? Because yeah, I forgot my mic is on. Thanks for the reminder. All right, so we're going to start in this position here, and you're going to just cast the clubs out and hinge, and just extend your arms straight out. Okay, let me turn this way. Yeah,
There we go.
it's just regular, just like you're swinging the kettlebell. Let the clubs float, and just hinge. We'll do like maybe 5 to 10 reps there. Just feels good. Just enough weight to decompress a little bit. Good. Next exercise, we'll hinge and we'll cast. So when we cast, we want to just really open up, stretch those triceps and really open up the T-spine like that. And then we'll just cast and hinge. So cast, hinge.
So the top move is very similar to the bottom part of a mace swing, where your hands are
The bull's horns, yeah.
at the base of your neck.
Yep, so get those hands nice and low in the back. Feel a nice stretch through the tricep. You don't have to rush it. Really stretch because it's light. You can get a nice extension. Good, 2 more. Nice. Now we're going to add that wrist circle. So a little brain training. So when we add the wrist circle, it'll be right out here, wrist circle. So we're going, here's what, I'll show you the movement first. So we'll do hinge, cast, hinge, wrist circle. 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 Let's do one more. Hinge, cast, hinge, wrist circle, and done. So those are just some movements, gets the heart rate up, they feel kind of good. And yeah, so those are just casting and getting the body moving and warmed up, getting the heart rate up a little tiny bit. Next, we'll go into talking about the circles. So kind of the meat and potatoes of Indian clubs swinging are all these circles. So we talked about the wrist circle. So that can be done out here. It can be done in the high V position. And those are used for transitions. So say I'm doing an inward heart, they can be used as a transition to outward hearts. And then you could have a parry. So the wrist circle can be done out here, out in front like we did, or high V. So wrist circles high V, in the T cross position, and then straight out front around the outside of the arm. Exactly, yep. So wrist circles, we talked about those. So next circle then is this elbow circle, which is right in front of the body. So just right here. And if there's a pane of glass in front of me, I'm not going to hit the pane of glass. It's not going to break. We talk about that in mace swinging a lot. So stay in the corridor there, both directions. That's just the wrist circle. I mean the elbow circle, pardon me. And let's just do both hands, left side, or your other side. Just do 4 to 5 each way, just to get the feel. So the thing about the light Indian clubs is that it's a passive movement. So it's made to kind of decompress the joints. That's why it's such a great complement to kettlebell training and sport training, because it really helps you decompress.
So there was one question from Eric, and he wants to know if you ever juggle with the clubs.
I have juggled a little bit with the clubs, but I have not done any juggling with the actual juggling clubs. But yes, I've done a little bit of, transitional juggling, but nothing crazy.
And juggling clubs are usually made for juggling, and so they're typically really, really light plastic clubs, maybe 500 grams, rubber on the top and bottom. And we have some friends, Jay juggles clubs, Jay Moran and a few others, but it's almost like that flow arts piece is a little bit different than the Indian clubs and clubs for exercise.
But they have, like in the Zircone, they juggle like the heavy meals. I don't know if you've seen that, but I haven't explored juggling the clubs too much, just a tiny bit.
You want to do full circles?
Yeah. All right. So next, very nice entry point will be to do, so the cast, the wrist circles, the elbow circles, and then, so from elbow circle, then we move in just full circles. So we'll start with single club, and then we'll go through a little flow with the 2 clubs. So if you're in the top and you're moving away from the midline, those are called outward circles. So let's do 5 outward. Straight arm circles, 1, 2, nice and easy, 3, 4, and 5. Remember, this is a passive movement, so the club's pulling you through. Now we'll do inward, crossing the midline, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Do you notice you like one or the other better, Kim?
I think I usually like doing outward more just because, well, I don't know. When I have two, I like the inward ones just because I feel like I can get into um like a movement with them rather than just like dropping my arm.
Yep.
And I can like get my body moving with them, I guess would be the best way to say it, which I guess I do on the outward swings too. Um, but I feel like on the inward swings, I'm really like my scapula and stuff is really moving a lot more than on the outward swings are just because your arms going cross body. And you know, when you're doing kettlebell, your arm is really trapped inside. So being able to loosen up the rhomboids right there to allow, because you know, a lot of people, which my husband included, like just have really tight shoulders and they can't round their shoulders to get into position to hold the bells properly. And so then they end up really just holding it with their shoulder. So I think it's definitely a good exercise to really allow that to loosen up. Because, you know, I feel like static stretching isn't that great, you know, but when you're stretching under load through a movement, I feel like that does a whole lot more than if I'm just gonna sit down and, you know, hang or whatever. So I do really like it for that.
Yeah, that's great. The reason I ask is because like most people kind of prefer, it feels good to you, and it could be due to your anatomy or your sport or where you spend time. And sometimes, like for me, I love the outward as well. It just feels good. So just kind of curious how that felt for you. All right, let's do two clubs. So we did outward and inward. Now we'll do two clubs. And we'll just do 5 each way. So now when we cross, we're going to cross left and then cross right. So just alternate which hand crosses in front. So we'll go outward. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, nice and slow, 5, 6, 7, one more, 8, stop at the top. Now we'll go inward. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Let's do 4 more. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good. Roll those shoulders.
I have never alternated before.
Yeah, let's
When
do
you
that.
said that, when you said to alternate your arm in front, I was like, oh no. I was like,
That's why
and I
clubs
think the
are
second swing I hit them together.
We have this.
So yeah, there was
clubs are fantastic for that, for the brain. Oh, you have a question? Sorry.
oh no, it's okay. So there was a question about, is the breathing pattern similar to bell work? Like, how do you, is there a different type of breathing pattern? Do you do it when your, you know, chest is most open, you're inhaling and then exhaling as it comes together?
I would say that's exactly it. Let me think. So inhale, expand the lungs, and then exhale as you come across. It's a nice relaxed breathing. So you want to have very nice relaxed breathing to bring your heart rate back down, especially if you're doing it as an active recovery. But yeah, that's a good question. Whatever feels good, but I would say as you cross, inhale here, and then exhale here. So we did the inward and outward full circles. Now we're going to do, I have it written down here. Now we're going to do the parallel circles. So it's the same movement, only we're just going to go move the clubs together. Yeah, I do exhale on that bottom, so right around here. Good, now let's go the other direction. So parallels. And now we'll do one more movement.
So when you're doing your parallels, do you rotate your torso at all, or do you really focus to try and keep it neutral?
You can do it both ways. We're going to actually do one with rotation right now. But when you're here, just finding a nice, you can actually look with it and find nice rotation. Kind of visualizing, keeping that club on the frontal plane there. So we did both directions there. The next one, we're just going to do a parallel sweep. So the same idea, we'll do a full circle, and then we're just going to sweep to the side. Full circle, sweep, we'll do straight out first, and then we'll get into more of a rotation, rotating the torso. So kind of that opposite knee will bend a little bit. You can be soft in the knees, whatever feels good. So if you do all these movements that we've already gone over, you can get through them all like within 5 minutes. So now we'll add a little more rotation, and you'll see it kind of resembles the kettlebell windmill. So same motion, but we're just going to really bend that opposite knee and extend up. You want to get a little extension there, rotation. Brings the hip into it a little bit. One of my favorites, yep, just like that. Yep. Those feel great.
I didn't even think to do, I mean, I've done the hinge with the swing, but surprisingly, I've never thought to do like with more rotation.
Yeah, the rotation feels amazing, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's funny, the things like the simple things that you just don't think about when, you know, you're going through some movements, like just simple changes that you can make. You're like, oh, that's like way better.
Yeah, but that's what's really cool about the clubs and the flow arts, because you can just be really creative with them. Creating flows and movements that feel good. You just want it to feel good, and you can tell and there's no one way to do it, right? So whatever feels good to you, as long as you're not hurting yourself there. Yeah, so I think that's it for just the straight arm circle. So these we call them full circles or straight arm circles. So those are just a few variations. There's a ton you can do with this stuff. You can get very complicated with your patterning. But the next thing, we're going to have Bill introduce us to are we good with time?
Oh yeah, we're good. We still have like 30 minutes. There's no,
Oh,
and if we go over, it's okay.
Okay.
I just usually try and keep them to an hour. That way, you know, sometimes an hour is enough to watch, but when it gets into like 2 hours, we're like, oh. So, but we're good.
So those are just some basic movements with the full circle that are very entry level. Sometimes the complicated stuff, people are just shy away from the clubs because it gets too complicated with patterning. And then you're just like, that's too much. I spent all my day thinking, I don't want to think with this. So those are some feel-good movements that everybody can do, very accessible. So the next movement is the heart shape, which incorporates, you know, we have the back circle here, which we didn't talk about. So the back circle, you know, heart shape. And Bill's going to talk about the steps to the heart shape.
So there's a variety of ways to ultimately swing these clubs. This movement that, you know, everybody calls the heart-shaped swing, you know, really is this classic Indian club swing. And once you learn this, even just with one side, almost all the fancy fancy club swing that people do revolves around this heart-shaped swing. So, so we teach it kind of similar to the way Ed Thomas teaches it. And then once you're comfortable with the movement, you know, you end up with a little bit different style than maybe other people. So for the heart-shaped swing, and we've got a YouTube series that walks through this over a bunch of videos. So it really takes, you know, takes you through.
What is the name of your YouTube channel?
It's Steph's channel. I want to say it's going to be Steph Sorenson.
What I'll do is I'll post if Facebook lets me, I can post a link directly to it
Okay.
in the comments. Does that work?
Yeah, that's totally fine. There was a question about chalk. So do you ever use chalk when you are swinging the clubs, or does that not work very well with wood? I mean, the wood ones, I don't feel like you really need it because I feel like they have quite a bit more grip than the plastic clubs do. But I don't know, even when I've done them, I don't think I've ever used chalk, but I haven't swung for a super long time. So
Yeah, typically we don't. Sometimes on complicated snake movements, you may do some things where you want, you know, more grip so that, you know, the club just doesn't fly out of your hand.
One club, so as far as using chalk, when I go to use like the larger, and this is a Palo Vandal XL loadable club, but like if I use meals or heavy clubs, I will use chalk, and I have used those on wood and it's been fine. So it probably depends on if your wood is natural and untreated. You might want to be a little careful about the chalk on that, but these clubs that we have, the wooden clubs, it'd be totally fine to use chalk if you felt you needed it, especially if you're in a climate that's humid and you get real sweaty. But for the most part, the pommel kind of keeps you locked and loaded in there. So
let's just walk through the heart-shaped swing. We'll do it quick. It really starts out in this, what we would call a rack position, and your feet are just comfortable with. Classic Indian clubs has your heels together, but we tend to migrate more to just parallel feet under your shoulders. Again, your club's gripped with your ring finger, and then you start in the full grip underneath your chin with the club pointing out to the side. So this is kind of the start and end of the circle. The first position is a position where we would call it where the club's in the backpack. Your elbow is pointed up at 45 degrees, or if you have limited mobility, wherever you can point it. So this is the first position. Next, we go to what we would say is high V. So you extend your hand, and then the club switches from full grip to saber grip. Yep, just like that.
can you show her how you yeah.
So it really is this smooth move from in the backpack to high V. Yep, just like that. Next, we want to draw these big circles with the head of the club. So the club circles down until the upper arm hits your body and then rolls across to parallel with the ground. So it goes from here to here. So this is a really comfortable, easy move. We don't want to see the club making a short circle here. So a lot of people will shorten that circle. We want a huge, beautiful circle. And then the club ends up in front of you. You switch to that full grip and back to that start. So pretty easy. So if we just go smoothly once, up to that high V, down to the side, in front. And that's the heart-shaped swing. And this is really, once you're comfortable with this, you can do an incredible amount of things. So then the
So
next,
is that, excuse me, so that is the outward.
Yep, that is the outward
Yep,
swing.
outward away from the midline. So from here outward is outward.
Then if we do the opposite, you just reverse it. So you start here, drop to parallel, swoop up to that high V, put the club in the backpack and get back to start. So again, it's the exact opposite. You're not learning anything new, just the other way.
And one thing to think about when you're going inward is we're not coming way behind the head as you might with a mace. We're coming about here, and then that elbow circle back.
Yeah.
So here, circle back.
One thing we really like is if you can keep that elbow high, that gives a tremendous stretch to your shoulder and scapula. So that's inward.
Nice.
And then grabbing two clubs, we'll just do this quick. Let's go outward again. So clubs together. Clubs are in the backpack, up to high V. With the club straight, there you go. They straight, stay straight, cross in front of you, pick one in front of the other, then back to start. Yep.
And with those, when you cross in front, it's okay to, whichever feels most comfortable, just stick with that with the heart shape.
Yeah.
To begin with. You don't have to alternate.
You don't have to alternate if you don't care to. So this is the outward heart-shaped swing.
So I noticed that you don't go, because I think when I normally do it, I was just going, well, I guess I don't go that far back either.
Yeah.
I was just noticing when you were swinging, it's like,
if you go out to the side, you miss maybe 60% of the movement by not going up.
I think
We
when,
really want you up here.
yeah, so as you come through, so think of this as come through, think of it as a nice elbow circle and then extend. So you're extending with that elbow at your eyebrow,
Right.
roughly, versus what
Versus here.
What often gets confused, and I think this is probably a video to shoot, is when you do a mill. So say I'm doing mills.
Right.
So this is a mill. So if I'm using a steel club, this is a mill. The mill often gets confused so the mills are low. I can't do it like looking at myself, but so the mill is low. And with a heavy club that works because you got to drive.
I think I'm technically always doing a mill. Like when I was watching you, I was really like, I don't really ever go above my head.
Yeah.
So.
And our goal is really to get the advantage of that stretch in your shoulder.
Yeah.
And even with a lot of kettlebell work, getting that extension up there really helps open that up. Good.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so one really great movement is to do, you can really extend doing your alternates. It starts reaching into some of those areas that you talked about where you're real tight, but really extend up. But it's
This is a little more advanced.
It's a little more advanced, yeah.
Working.
Yeah. So focusing here on getting up.
Yeah,
Nice
just doing
extension.
even one club, and to your point earlier, you can sure rotate to give yourself more movement and reach there.
Yeah, so practice
There
it
you
with
go.
one and really extend up. Here, extend. Here, extend. Here, extend. High. Yeah, there you go. Here, extend. Yep, here. And the thing is, if don't rush it, right? Don't rush the swing. So come bring it through 1 and 2. 1 and 2. Nice. 1, little slower. 2. 2, slower. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. So feel that float, right? Just like with the mace. 2, 1, 2, 1 and 2. So slowing it down just a little is going to help you get more extension there.
So that's kind of the heart shape swing basics. You know, once you're comfortable with it, you can add transitions and wrist circles to really kind of move through, you know, in parallel, alternates, changing from outward to inward, changing into parallels, changing into windmills. But again, it's all just this one heart-shaped swing that does that. So once you're comfortable
Can
with
we
the
talk
heart-shaped
through like
swing,
the,
you're really
so
good.
how about if we talk through, let's go through, first we'll do outward hearts. So go ahead if you want to demo outward heart.
Okay.
Good, inward heart.
We would do a transition to inward heart.
So inward hearts. Good, one more.
You just look so fancy.
And
And I do want to point out that, you know, you're a decent sized guy, right?
Yeah.
But your shoulder mobility is really pretty good. I mean, it's good. I shouldn't
so
say pretty good.
these are parallels. And let's transition parallels other way. That was the wrist circle transition.
And then you can,
One more, and then let's do windmill.
then you can delay one of the clubs. And then that opens you up to this big, huge windmill.
Do the windmill slow. So windmill, you get a nice stretch. I really love those.
There is something too about doing these slow. Even as you slow it down, you may feel you shake a little bit. You know, you may feel some different stress on your shoulders.
And these are the alternates. These feel really good.
And it does
So
get
what
fancy quick.
club weight are you currently using right now? Is
These
that 1
are
pound or 1 pound?
1.5.
Oh, okay. Is that when you're doing a lot of these swings? You know, when I first started doing like Bulgarian bag training, I realized that I had bought way too heavy of a bag because in my
Yes.
head I was like, oh, I can swing like a 30-pound bag. And they're like, oh, no, you don't, when you're doing those fast movements, you don't use that heavy of a bag. And I was like, oh, shit, no wonder I was struggling so much. So normally for a lot of these, you would just use like 1.5 to a pound.
Yeah, typically that's what, in all honesty, that's what we swing. We swing 1.5 to 2 pound clubs. We really like our clubs. We really like Jack's clubs. And then
These are a set of clubs by Paul Volkowitzki in Poland. They're custom, like handmade.
Australia.
Yeah, he's in Australia. Poland, Australia.
They're a little bit different, not that far apart though, you know.
He's Polish, but
I have watched him. Like his stuff is really cool to watch as
Yeah.
well.
He's
But-
brilliant.
but these are the 3 pound clubs, and they really work. It's very taxing, I guess is the word, to go heavy with the clubs. So you want to start light, just like with the mace. You want to start light just to make sure you don't overdo your tendons and everything and your elbows.
And you'll find even on wrist circles, as they get heavier, you pull the club in to adjust for that really heavy. So light clubs are great.
Yeah, so like so if I were to do one of that cast that we were doing, they feel great with the heavy club, but then here the elbow comes in. See how the elbow comes in there? More of an elbow circle
Yeah.
on that one.
So light
And
clubs
that's
are.
just because the weight of the club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you were to do a wrist circle with a heavy club, you'll feel the extreme stress on your wrist.
Yeah.
And so ultimately you can do wrist circles with 5 pound clubs, but it looks much more like that. Looks much more like what a move would be, as part of a mill. You get that elbow out of the way. So that's kind of the heart-shaped swing example. Again, we've got a good series on YouTube that literally walks you through each step. And we don't expect people to get it right away, So if it takes a while, that's one thing we haven't talked about. We had this bizarre thing. Plug it in. We'll see where we go.
You might have to get the expert to adjust the camera.
Can you hear us?
Can you still hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. Now we just took the mic off because my plug-in is where the mic goes. So that's just kind of some fundamentals. When you start talking about patterning and everything, the patterns can get really complex. And once you get the heart shape down and the full circles, just find where those are. You can do almost any pattern. So that's when it becomes fun and learning.
And more of a mental exercise. It's almost like some people who play piano in the beginning, trying to get your left hand to do something different than your right hand is really complicated. As the patterns get more complicated and you want to separate your one side from the other, you'll almost go through a similar process with this.
Did you want to talk about the experience?
I guess I really never thought about the heart pattern really, because when you're watching it and you're watching somebody transition through a bunch of movements, it seems very different, Yeah. Each movement seems like its own individual thing. So I really hadn't thought about it being all just an extension of this heart-shaped pattern with just kind of like some additional movements or different patterning of timing for the swing or so.
It's almost like, we all say, or used to say maybe the hardstyle community, a snatch is really just a swing with a little bit extra pop. A clean starts out as a swing. If you don't have a good swing, you don't have a good clean. It's almost the same where once you get that heart shape down, that really does lead to it. I wanted to talk about one small thing. And so we work with a variety of trainers around the country and now sometimes around the world that use clubs for the older population, some with Parkinson's, some with stroke recovery, some with just, people in their 80s and 90s. And so that's been a really interesting thing. We had something happen to us that kind of brought this home. When we were both first learning Indian clubs, we moved to Minnesota. On the way to Minnesota, I had a stroke. How crazy, for us, how crazy was that? Pretty young, kind of really healthy. It ended up, as a kind of a medium-sized stroke, a little bit of hospitalization. And then coming out of that, as part of the recovery, I ended up feeling like, I'm going to use these Indian clubs to help get this left side back to normal. And so really, really worked consistently, and in the beginning, it's just 5 minutes a day. And, over time, over probably 6 to 8 months, I ended up being able to really recover well, and now fully recover, but really recover well by forcing, your head or your mind to work on alternate patterns, complicated patterns. And so for us, it was a really nice tool for us to get not only the physical movement, but this complex patterning movement worked out for us.
I believe it's healing with the brain, with the neural pathways and things like that. I think it's pretty phenomenal how the patterning is so helpful.
Yeah, I don't think people think about, in the past we've dealt with like a lot of fighters and, stroke and it is very similar to what's happening with the brain with concussive factors, right? So you have a concussion, and for fighters or football players where they have multiple concussions over a period of time, a portion of that brain, when you have repetitive damage or stroke in this case, the electrical wave stops going through that portion, but it can reroute. It just takes time and you to repetitively like try and force it to create a new pattern. So yeah, that was a interesting story.
Yeah.
It's pretty magical. The Gus Peterson has a similar story, only with he used kettlebell juggling as his rehabilitation. And so it's learning the patterning and everything with all these things, it has its place. Some people think, oh, you're a big guy, you're a big lifter, you got to do all heavy this, heavy that. Well, dancing around with a light mace or club actually is really good for your brain. Like it's really, really good for patterning. It's going to help you with falling in the future, like, coordination, fall prevention, things like that. So pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, when you start really changing the pattern, well, even like, because I haven't been practicing, I used to be halfway decent with alternating, but it took me like a while and then like you'll hit it and you're like, okay, I got it. And then your brain will like seize up and you can't catch the pattern again. So, I mean, it definitely is a brain exercise to be able to concentrate really on two separate, entities. So yeah. So what did you find that made it easier to learn these alternating patterns? Do you have any thought process like when you're trying to learn like a new pattern to get your brain to like key into it?
Yeah, it's interesting. That's a perfect kind of segue. So I'm right-handed, right side dominant. My left hand is, kind of a normal follower, let's say. Videoing yourself is fantastic. Your brain, when you're doing, let's say, alternates, and you think your left arm, your weak arm is following exactly what it should. You video it and watch back and you go, what the hell's going on? It just doesn't follow along. So we really like, and personally, I really like slow. So let's say you're trying to do alternates. Okay, she'll get the camera. You're trying to do alternates. Again, it's just a heart-shaped swing, so it can't be that hard. But the correct way to start, the best way to start is you start at half and half. And half and half is one club in the rack, the other club at high V. And so the easiest way to learn this, and ultimately this is the pattern you want, right? This is the alternate pattern. So the easiest way to learn this is to alternate each side. So first, you're going to do this. Then you're going to do this. Then you're going to do this. And so by alternating these, and in all honesty, watching yourself either in a mirror or on a PC or video really lets you understand, in your mind understand that happens. And then slowness is the key. So you just move slowly. And you let
Going slow is such a shoulder burner. When you were having me go slow earlier, I was like, oh.
And you let your mind feel each piece. And so for me, as you do that, and then you slowly speed up, pretty soon your body and mind find those two spots pretty reasonably well. and say, all I have to do is get to there. All I have to do is get to there. And so,
And just so you know, a lot of this stuff takes a lot of time. So it's not something that comes immediately. So if you feel like you're not getting it right away, nobody does.
Nobody
It
does.
takes, even just the heart shape, it just takes some time and some reps, like, the 10,000 rep thing. So,
Well, it's just like if you have somebody come in and they've been doing hard style swinging basically the whole time, and then you're trying to teach them this pendulum style swing. It's really hard for your brain because it's just that you've developed this pattern, to get your brain to break out of that and naturally do a different pattern. So nobody walks out on, baseball field, picks up baseball the first time and is like the Rangers or something,
exactly. Yep.
probably the last movement we talk about are snakes. And snakes are completely different. There's outward snakes. And it's really where your club snakes around your upper arm. They're hard to teach and hard to learn. The snake grip is your finger on the top of the kettlebell. There's two snake grips. This is the one we teach. So it allows you to control the kettlebell or control the
Pinky's out. Pinky's out to be fancy,
Pinky's can sure be out. And then there's an outward snake where the club starts at the top. Actually, yeah. So I even have to think about it when I teach it. Starts at the top, your elbow comes in, the club snakes around you one time, and then goes into what they call a round off.
That's it.
So once around, twice around, round off. For me, there was a young woman.
Okay, do it again slow. Do it again
Okay.
slow. I'm already backwards. Okay, so we're starting out like this. Is the club behind? Yes.
Oh,
So
no. You're in this snake grip.
Okay.
And then grip the
All right.
club with the rest of your fingers.
Here, I'll do it a little closer.
And move out of the way.
I think I don't have. Why is this
Let's
so
start this way.
complicated?
Here.
Oh my gosh.
Just put it this way.
Okay, go back to
Just
this.
Put it this way. There you go.
So you have
You're pinching
Okay,
it
middle
between
finger
your
and
thumb
first
and middle finger. Pointer is on the top. And
Okay.
then grip the club. There you go.
okay.
So
Okay.
then club starts at the top, bend your elbow. And the club goes behind. Yep.
Oh,
And then bend your elbow again, and then it does the round up. So it starts.
my
at the
God.
top, starts at the top, goes underneath. And then, so this is really,
oh,
so.
my
we can
brain
try
is
the other
struggling.
way. Yeah, so then you can do it outwards, which the club starts behind, just like that. Bend your elbow in, club snakes around to the inside. Yeah, and then snakes around again. Then you do this round off to get it back to the backside.
That's it.
There you go, but you're now on the backside instead.
But now,
So now over this, go to the back. There you go. So one. Just bend at the elbow, not the shoulder. Two.
I think I need a shorter club.
You really want, so it's funny you say that. When we teach this in a class,
My brain was on the struggle bus for real. I think I found something I'm not good at. They were like, "Are you good at everything?" I'm like, "No, I can't cook." And apparently, I
we
can't
teach this in
do
a class, we'll use a collie stick to show that, it goes all the way around and in front of you.
I think it looks more complicated than it is.
That's correct.
Which is not how I felt while I was
Just
doing
did
it.
the first time.
Super complicated.
I remember the first time Bill he was doing a snake on one side and like
Heart shape.
heart shape on the other.
And he tried that. He saw some guy on YouTube doing this with the juggling clubs. He does all these really complicated stuff. All of a sudden he comes running and he's like, I did it. It's finally left separated from right. Like
Yeah.
he had an aha moment where lefty finally separated from the right. So this was doing this, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's almost funny. It was about 8 months into 5 minutes a day that it happened. So it took me a long time. But at that moment,
Excuse me.
my left side could do anything. My right side could do anything. And it was just a little bit of a freeing.
Well, I think we're coming to the end. Is there anything else that little tidbits of information that you wanted to share?
Can we talk about juggling for a minute?
Oh. That's
No?
okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So so I live mostly on Instagram. So Steph Joe Sorenson on Instagram, and then Bill is Bill Sorenson on Instagram. And then I'll put the YouTube link to our heart shape series, if you will. Just learning how to do the heart shape. We go step by step through that. We'll post that in the comments here if that works.
Well, I really appreciate you guys coming on. It's been a fun talk.
Yeah.
Just, all the people that come on here and do education, they come on here and, just donate their time. So I really appreciate you coming on to do this. And, for anybody out there, if there's something that you're really good at and it's kettlebell-ish related, please reach out to me or, you can also comment on the video and we can try and get something set up. So like I said, I really appreciate it. I learned quite a few things, so.
Really glad for us.
Awesome.
So
I just want to say the Kettlebell World Juggling Games is coming up in October 5th and 6th in Brooklyn. So anybody here wants to look out for that.
I dabble in juggling, but I am definitely not that great at it. Maybe the clubs will help my brain get better.
One thing Steph's done a lot of this last 3 or 4 years, and it's amazing amount of work, amazing to watch.
Yeah, a little bit of.
I know. I watch your videos all the time. Like they're very awesome to watch. So once again, thank you guys for coming on, and I hope you guys have a good Sunday.
Yeah,
Thank you. It was so
Thanks
fun to
much.
talk to you.
All right.
All right. See you later.
Bye.